In the vastness of space, where stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across an endless velvet canvas, a peculiar encounter unfolded. Captain Theo Reynolds, a seasoned human soldier with a reputation for bravery and wit, found himself standing in the opulent throne room of Queen Zareen, ruler of the Luminal Empire. The chamber shimmered with alien splendor, walls adorned with crystalline patterns that seemed to breathe light, floors made of a material that rippled underfoot like liquid silver, and towering pillars carved from some translucent mineral that refracted rainbows. Theo had been sent on what he thought was a routine diplomatic mission to negotiate trade agreements between Earth and the Luminal Empire. But nothing about this meeting felt routine. Queen Zareen herself was breathtaking, an ethereal being whose skin glowed faintly with an inner luminescence, her flowing robes woven from threads that appeared to be spun starlight. Her eyes held galaxies within them, swirling constellations that hinted at both wisdom and desperation. "Captain Reynolds," she began, her voice melodic yet tinged with urgency. "I must ask you something extraordinary. Something vital not just for me but for my entire kingdom." Theo raised an eyebrow, his military training keeping him alert despite the surreal setting. "Your Majesty, I'm honored by your request, but I should warn you, I don't do weddings without cake tastings first." Zareen's lips twitched into a fleeting smile before her expression grew serious again. "This is no jest, Captain. Galactic law mandates that any monarch must secure a union or face the dissolution of their reign. My advisors have informed me that if I do not marry soon, our empire will fall into chaos, and worse, become vulnerable to hostile forces eager to seize control." She paused, taking a step closer to him, her gaze piercing through his armor of skepticism. "You are renowned among humans as a protector, a man who fights for justice. Marry me, and together we can safeguard my people and preserve peace across this quadrant." For a moment, Theo simply stared at her, trying to process the absurdity of the situation. Him married to an alien queen? It sounded like the plot of one of those cheesy sci-fi holodramas he secretly enjoyed watching during downtime. Yet there was something in Zareen's voice, a raw vulnerability, that tugged at his heartstrings. "I appreciate the offer, Your Highness," he said cautiously, "but shouldn't you be asking someone, well, more royal? Or at least another alien?" Zareen shook her head firmly. "Time is short, and alliances with humans are highly valued. You possess qualities rare even among royalty: courage, integrity, and a willingness to stand against tyranny. Besides," she added with a wry smile, "you're far more handsome than most of the suitors paraded before me." Theo chuckled nervously, scratching the back of his neck. "Well, flattery will get you everywhere, ma'am. But marriage? That's a big leap. Don't get me wrong, you seem lovely, glowing literally and figuratively, but I barely know you." Her expression softened, and for the first time, Theo saw uncertainty flicker across her luminous features. "Then let us begin," she said softly. "Let us learn each other's stories while we still have time." And so, amidst the grandeur of the luminal throne room, an unlikely courtship commenced. Zareen shared tales of her childhood growing up in the floating citadels of Luminera Prime, where gravity shifted whimsically, causing children to bounce carelessly through corridors lined with bioluminescent flora. She spoke of her ascension to the throne after her parents' untimely demise, thrusting her into leadership far earlier than anticipated. Her words painted vivid images of triumphs and trials, of battles fought not just with weapons but with diplomacy and cunning. In turn, Theo recounted his own journey, from enlisting in Earth's interstellar fleet to protect humanity's fragile foothold among the stars, to surviving harrowing missions that tested his resolve. He regaled her with humorous anecdotes of botched translations during interspecies negotiations. Turns out calling a Gracther diplomat feisty isn't exactly complimentary. And near-death escapes involving malfunctioning teleportation devices. As they talked, hours melted away unnoticed. The initial awkwardness gave way to genuine connection, their laughter echoing through the cavernous hall. For all their differences, Theo realized they weren't so dissimilar, both burdened by responsibilities thrust upon them, both driven by a desire to shield others from harm. But beneath the camaraderie lurked shadows of doubt. Could he truly commit to such a monumental decision based solely on necessity? And could Zareen trust him fully, knowing their bond stemmed from desperation rather than destiny? Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Zareen's chief advisor, Lord Vraxen, whose elongated cranium and iridescent scales marked him as a member of the reptilian Xylothian race. His presence exuded authority, though his tone carried thinly veiled disdain. "Your Majesty," Vraxen intoned, bowing low but fixing Theo with a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "Forgive the intrusion, but time grows critical. If no formal engagement is announced soon, the High Council may intervene." Zareen straightened, her regal bearing returning instantly. "Thank you, Lord Vraxen. Rest assured, arrangements are underway." Turning back to Theo, her eyes pleaded silently for understanding. "Well, Captain," she said, attempting levity despite the tension thickening the air. "Shall we seal this deal before bureaucracy ruins the party?" Before Theo could respond, alarms blared throughout the palace, red lights flashing ominously. Guards rushed past, shouting orders in languages Theo struggled to decipher. Zareen's expression hardened, transforming from hopeful bride-to-be to resolute commander. "Intruders," she snapped, gesturing for Theo to follow her. "Stay close, we cannot afford distractions now." Together, they sprinted through labyrinthine corridors, dodging blasts from energy rifles wielded by shadowy figures clad in black combat gear. Whether mercenaries hired to disrupt the monarchy or agents of rival factions seeking to exploit the crisis, Theo didn't know. What he did know was that adrenaline coursed through his veins, instincts honed by years of service kicking into high gear. Dodging behind a marble pillar, Theo pulled out his plasma pistol, returning fire with precision. "Guess proposing under fire wasn't part of your plan, huh?" he quipped, grinning despite the peril. Zareen rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smirk. "Hardly romantic, Captain. Focus." With coordinated movements born of necessity, they fought their way toward the central security hub, where technicians scrambled to identify the breach. Along the way, Theo marveled at Zareen's prowess, not just her physical agility but her strategic mind, directing guards and issuing commands with calm efficiency. Finally reaching the hub, they discovered the source of the attack, a sophisticated hacking program designed to disable palace defenses and broadcast false declarations of abdication across the empire. Without hesitation, Theo interfaced his wrist console with the system, fingers flying over holographic keys as he countered the intrusion. "You're quite skilled," Zareen remarked, watching him work. "Years of practice breaking into restricted areas," he replied with a wink. "Don't worry, it's usually legal." Minutes stretched into eternity until finally, the alarm ceased, replaced by the hum of restored systems. Exhausted but triumphant, Theo leaned back against a console, wiping sweat from his brow. "So, about that proposal," he ventured, half teasing, half serious. Zareen gazed at him, her expression inscrutable. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed, a sound rich and warm, filling the room with light. "Perhaps tomorrow, Captain. For now, let us ensure my kingdom remains intact." Little did either of them realize how intertwined their fates had already become, or the challenges awaiting beyond the immediate danger. As they stood side by side, united by shared struggle, seeds of something deeper took root, promising adventures far greater than either could imagine. The aftermath of the attack left the palace in disarray, its once pristine halls now scarred with scorch marks and shattered crystal panels. Repair drones buzzed incessantly, repairing damage while technicians worked tirelessly to fortify the security systems. Despite the chaos, Queen Zareen remained steadfast, her focus unwavering as she navigated the political fallout threatening to destabilize her rule further. News of the attempted coup spread rapidly throughout the empire, igniting rumors among the populace. Some hailed Theo as a hero, crediting his quick thinking with saving the monarchy. Others whispered conspiracy theories, questioning whether the human captain had orchestrated the attack himself to manipulate events in his favor. These murmurs reached Zareen's ears, fueling her determination to solidify their alliance swiftly. "You understand, Captain," she explained during a private meeting later that evening, "that perception matters almost as much as reality. By marrying you, I not only comply with galactic law but also demonstrate strength and unity." Theo nodded thoughtfully, leaning back in his chair. They were seated in a smaller audience chamber, away from prying eyes and listening devices. The intimacy of the setting allowed them to speak freely, though Theo couldn't shake the feeling of being scrutinized, even here. "Perception versus reality," he mused aloud. "Sounds familiar. Back home, Politicians use similar tactics all the time. Guess it's universal. A soft chuckle escaped Zareen, easing some of the tension lingering between them. Indeed, Captain. Though few politicians would find themselves facing such unconventional circumstances. Her gaze lingered on him, searching for signs of hesitation or doubt. Finding none, she continued, "There is another matter we must address. The High Council convenes tomorrow to discuss recent events. Their decision could expedite our timeline significantly." "Tomorrow?" Theo echoed, surprise evident in his voice. "That doesn't give us much time to plan a wedding, does it?" Zareen smiled wistfully. "Tradition holds less importance than necessity right now. A simple ceremony will suffice, followed by a public declaration of our union. Once that is done, my position will be secured, at least temporarily." Temporary solutions rarely satisfied anyone, especially when lives depended on permanence. Yet Theo understood the stakes involved. Delaying action might lead to irreversible consequences. Still, agreeing to marry someone he barely knew, alien queen or not, felt monumental. "All right," he said slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Let's say I agree to this. What happens next? Beyond the ceremony, I mean. How do we make this work long-term?" Her expression softened, gratitude shining through her luminous eyes. "We take it one day at a time, Theo. Learn from each other, adapt. Together, we can forge a partnership stronger than either of us alone." He appreciated her honesty, recognizing the same pragmatic approach he often employed in battle. No sugarcoating, just straightforward logic tempered with hope. Perhaps they weren't so different after all. As dawn approached, preparations for the impromptu ceremony commenced. Servants bustled about, arranging floral displays crafted from bioluminescent plants native to Luminara Prime. Musicians tuned instruments emitting haunting melodies that resonated deep within the soul. Meanwhile, tailors worked feverishly to create attire befitting both a human groom and an alien queen. Theo found himself subjected to fittings involving fabrics unlike anything he'd encountered before, threads that shimmered like stardust, garments tailored to accommodate his terrestrial physique yet styled in accordance with luminal customs. Each adjustment brought flashes of amusement as designers debated over sleeve lengths and collar heights, clearly unused to accommodating non-luminal anatomy. "You look splendid, Captain," remarked Lady Arindra, Zareen's chief seamstress, stepping back to admire her handiwork, though perhaps a touch more embellishment around the shoulders. "No thanks," Theo interjected quickly, raising his hands defensively. "I prefer functional over flashy. Trust me, simpler is better." Arindra pursed her lips but relented, jotting notes onto a datapad. Nearby, another group of servants prepared gifts symbolizing unity. Jewelry imbued with protective enchantments, ceremonial daggers forged from meteoric iron, and scrolls detailing ancient vows passed down through generations of luminal royalty. While these rituals unfolded, Zareen faced her own challenges. Convincing skeptical nobles of the wisdom behind allying with a human proved daunting. Many viewed outsiders with suspicion, fearing cultural contamination or loss of autonomy. Even allies expressed reservations, urging caution lest hasty decisions undermine centuries of tradition. Yet Zareen remained resolute, leveraging every ounce of charisma and authority at her disposal. She addressed gatherings of dignitaries, emphasizing mutual benefits stemming from cooperation with Earth. Trade opportunities, technological exchanges, enhanced defense capabilities, all arguments bolstering her case for embracing change rather than resisting it. Behind closed doors, however, moments of vulnerability surfaced. Late at night, after dismissing advisors and retreating to her private chambers, Zareen allowed herself brief respites from relentless responsibility. Gazing out at the sprawling cityscape illuminated below, she contemplated the enormity of choices looming ahead. Was she doing the right thing? Sacrificing personal desires for the sake of duty weighed heavily upon her conscience. Yet glimpses of Theo's sincerity offered reassurance. Perhaps fate intended their paths to cross, intertwining destinies in ways neither initially anticipated. By midday, anticipation reached fever pitch. Crowds gathered outside the palace gates, eager to witness history unfold. Reporters from various Galactic media outlets jockeyed for prime positions, broadcasting live feeds across planets and star systems. Speculation ran rampant regarding potential outcomes, ranging from celebratory fanfare to catastrophic collapse. Inside the palace, final touches concluded amidst palpable excitement. Theo stood before a mirror, adjusting his attire one last time. Despite initial misgivings, he admitted, if only to himself, looking rather dashing. Beside him, Lord Vraxen hovered disapprovingly, muttering comments about human customs clashing with luminal decorum. Ignoring the advisor's grumbles, Theo focused instead on calming nerves threatening to overwhelm rationale. This wasn't merely about saving a kingdom or fulfilling obligations. It represented embarking on uncharted territory, embracing possibilities fraught with uncertainty yet brimming with promise. Moments later, heralds announced the commencement of proceedings. Doors swung open, revealing a grand hall transformed into a vision of celestial beauty. Columns draped with iridescent fabrics caught ambient light, casting prismatic reflections dancing across polished floors. At the far end, beneath an archway adorned with glowing blossoms, awaited Zareen. Clad in regalia radiating brilliance rivaling supernovae, she descended gracefully toward him. Every step exuded poise and purpose, drawing gasps of admiration from assembled guests. When finally they met midway, exchanging smiles tinged with equal parts apprehension and exhilaration, silence enveloped the chamber. Here they stood, two beings from vastly different worlds, united by circumstance yet bound by burgeoning respect. As officiants recited ancient oaths and blessings, Theo reflected upon the journey leading to this pivotal moment. From accidental diplomat to prospective consort, life certainly possessed a knack for surprising twists. And though questions lingered unanswered, uncertainties unresolved, one truth resonated clearly. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Side by side, navigating complexities inherent in blending cultures, confronting adversaries lurking in shadows, forging bonds transcending mere convenience. For now, amidst splendor and solemnity, they pledged allegiance, not just to each other but to ideals larger than individual desires. Hope mingled with resolve, forming foundations upon which futures might rise. Or falter. Only time would reveal ultimate destinies intertwined within vows exchanged under watchful eyes of countless stars. Amidst the grandeur of the ceremony, whispers of dissent began to ripple through the crowd. A faction of nobles, led by the ever-watchful Lord Vraxen, exchanged subtle nods and knowing glances. Their dissatisfaction simmered beneath polite facades, masked by forced smiles and courteous applause. To them, this union represented not salvation but sacrilege, an affront to luminal purity and tradition. As the newlyweds turned to face their subjects, Theo couldn't help but notice the undercurrent of tension. It wasn't just the usual post-ceremonial formality. Something darker brewed in the corners of the hall. Zareen, too, sensed it, her grip tightening imperceptibly on his hand as they processed down the aisle. Outside the palace walls, the atmosphere grew equally volatile. News of the royal marriage spread like wildfire, sparking debates across the empire. Supporters hailed it as a bold move towards unity and progress, while detractors decried it as reckless endangerment of cultural heritage. Protests erupted in major cities, with citizens divided sharply along ideological lines. Back inside, the reception unfolded with lavish feasts and performances meant to celebrate unity. Acrobats soared overhead, trailing ribbons of light, while musicians played harmonies that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of space itself. Yet beneath the surface revelry, Theo detected unease among the guests. Conversations carried undertones of skepticism, veiled insults cloaked in diplomatic language. One particularly vocal critic, Duchess Lysandra, cornered Theo during a lull in festivities. Her elaborate gown shimmered menacingly, matching the intensity of her glare. "Captain Reynolds," she drawled, her voice dripping with disdain, "surely you understand the gravity of what transpires here today. Your presence threatens everything we hold dear." Theo met her gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. "Duchess, I assure you, my intentions are honorable. This alliance benefits both our peoples." Her lips curled into a sneer. "Intentions mean little when actions speak louder. We shall see how long your devotion lasts under pressure." Before Theo could respond, Zareen intervened, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Duchess Lysandra, perhaps you'd prefer discussing matters of state elsewhere?" This is a joyous occasion, after all. Lysandra inclined her head stiffly, though her eyes promised future confrontations. As she swept away, Theo released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Friendly bunch, aren't they? Zareen offered a wry smile. Politics rarely breeds warmth, especially when power dynamics shift unexpectedly. But fear not, Theo, we've faced worse together already. True to her word, challenges mounted swiftly. Reports filtered in of increased rebel activity along border regions, insurgents emboldened by perceived weakness in leadership. Spies infiltrated key ministries, sowing discord and misinformation. Even within the palace, sabotage attempts targeted critical infrastructure, forcing heightened security measures. Through it all, Theo and Zareen stood united, navigating treacherous waters with a blend of strategy and stubbornness. They conducted joint inspections of affected areas, demonstrating solidarity and resilience. In council meetings, they presented unified fronts, countering opposition with reasoned arguments and undeniable facts. Yet personal strains emerged alongside political pressures. Long nights spent strategizing left little time for rest, let alone romance. Misunderstandings arose from cultural differences, subtle gestures misinterpreted, traditions misunderstood. Patience wore thin, tempers flared. One evening, following yet another exhausting day of crisis management, Theo found himself pacing the balcony overlooking the capital city. Lights twinkled below, offering deceptive tranquility compared to turmoil above. Behind him, Zareen watched silently, sensing his frustration. "We can't keep going like this," he admitted finally, turning to face her. "Something has to give." She stepped closer, her expression softening. "I know, Theo. Believe me, I feel it too. But remember why we started this, to protect what matters most." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I get that. Really, I do. But sometimes it feels like we're losing ourselves in the process." For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of unspoken fears hanging heavy between them. Then Zareen reached out, taking his hand in hers. "Perhaps we need reminders of who we are beyond titles and responsibilities. Moments that remind us why we chose each other." Inspiration struck suddenly, sparked by memories of simpler times before duty demanded so much. "How about a break?" Theo suggested impulsively. "Just you and me, somewhere quiet. No guards, no advisors, no expectations." Surprise flickered across Zareen's features, quickly replaced by cautious optimism. "A retreat? Where would we go?" "There's a planet nearby, Viridian 4. Known for its natural beauty and strict privacy laws. Perfect for clearing heads and reconnecting." Hope ignited within her, brightening her luminescent glow. "It sounds wonderful. Let's do it." Plans set in motion, they slipped away discreetly, leaving trusted lieutenants in charge temporarily. Traveling incognito aboard a modest shuttle, they arrived at Viridian IV's secluded beaches, where turquoise waves lapped gently against pristine sands. For days, they wandered hand in hand, rediscovering joys stripped away by constant conflict. Laughter returned, genuine and unrestrained. Shared meals under starlit skies rekindled sparks of affection nearly extinguished by stress. Conversations flowed freely, untainted by agendas or pretenses. Here, surrounded by nature's splendor, they remembered what drew them together initially. Mutual respect, shared values, undeniable chemistry. But paradise proved fleeting. Midway through their escape, urgent transmissions interrupted idyllic solitude. Crisis loomed back home, escalating beyond containment without their direct involvement. Reluctantly, Theo and Zareen prepared to return, hearts heavier yet spirits renewed. "I guess reality waits for no one," Theo remarked wistfully as they boarded the shuttle. Zareen squeezed his hand reassuringly. "No, it doesn't. But remember, Theo, we're stronger together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it side by side." As engines roared to life, propelling them back towards uncertain futures, determination replaced resignation. Challenges awaited, undoubtedly fierce and unyielding. Yet armed with rekindled resolve and deepened understanding, they faced them ready, not just as partners bound by necessity but as allies committed to enduring whatever storms lay ahead. Upon returning to Luminera Prime, Theo and Zareen were greeted not by the usual pomp and circumstance but by an eerie stillness that hung over the palace grounds. The once bustling corridors now echoed with emptiness, save for the hurried footsteps of guards rushing to reinforce barricades. Outside, the capital city's skyline bore scars of recent skirmishes, plumes of smoke rising from damaged structures, streets deserted except for scattered debris. "What happened?" Theo demanded, striding alongside Zareen as they made their way to the war room. "The rebels intensified their attacks while we were away," Zareen explained grimly, her voice steady despite the tension crackling in the air. "They've seized several key installations, disrupting supply chains and communications. Worse, they've gained support from within the military ranks." Entering the war room, they found chaos reigning supreme. Holographic maps displayed shifting front lines, blinking red zones indicating areas under siege. Advisors shouted conflicting strategies, while technicians frantically patched together fragmented intel feeds. Amidst the pandemonium, Lord Vraxen stood prominent, directing operations with cold efficiency. "Ah, Your Majesty," he greeted curtly, barely acknowledging Theo's presence. "Glad you've returned. We've managed to contain breaches thus far, but reinforcements are needed urgently." Zareen wasted no time, immediately diving into discussions, assessing troop movements and resource allocations. Theo observed quietly, absorbing details, piecing together patterns. His experience in Earth's interstellar conflicts lent him insights valuable in this alien battlefield. "Wait," he interjected suddenly, pointing to a section of the map. "If we reallocate forces here, we can cut off their supply lines and trap them between two divisions." Vraxen scoffed dismissively. "Human tactics won't work against seasoned insurgents familiar with our terrain." "But they haven't faced combined human-luminal strategies before," Theo countered sharply. "Trust me, diversionary maneuvers coupled with precise strikes could turn the tide." Reluctantly, Zareen agreed to implement Theo's plan, mobilizing units accordingly. Over the next hours, they coordinated assaults, leveraging advanced technology alongside traditional warfare techniques. Communication channels buzzed incessantly, relaying updates and adjustments as battles unfolded across multiple fronts. Meanwhile, hidden threats lurked closer than anticipated. Within the palace itself, traitorous elements plotted betrayal, aiming to incapacitate leadership and plunge the empire into complete disorder. Unbeknownst to anyone, a mole embedded deep within security forces relayed sensitive information directly to rebel commanders. Late one night, as Theo reviewed tactical data in a secluded study, movement caught his peripheral vision. Instinctively, he rolled aside just as a blade whistled past where his head had been moments earlier. Springing to his feet, he confronted the assassin, a masked figure wielding exotic weaponry designed specifically to bypass standard defenses. Adrenaline surged as Theo engaged in hand-to-hand combat, using every trick learned during rigorous training sessions. The assassin proved formidable, agile and skilled, pressing relentless attacks that forced Theo to dodge and counter with increasing desperation. Just when victory seemed uncertain, reinforcements arrived, overwhelming the assailant who vanished into shadows before capture. Breathing heavily, Theo reported the incident to Zareen, who listened gravely. "This changes everything," she declared, ordering immediate lockdown protocols and initiating internal investigations. Suspicion cast long shadows, testing loyalties and exposing fractures within trusted circles. Despite mounting dangers, Theo and Zareen refused to yield. United, they rallied remaining loyalists, inspiring courage through shared resolve. Public addresses broadcast via encrypted channels reassured citizens, rallying support crucial for sustaining morale amidst adversity. Simultaneously, covert operations dismantled rebel networks piece by piece. Agents infiltrated enemy ranks, gathering intelligence vital for planning decisive counteroffensives. Betrayals uncovered led to arrests of high-ranking officials implicated in treasonous activities, including members of Zareen's inner circle. Each victory, however small, bolstered confidence, strengthening bonds forged under fire. Through sleepless nights and relentless pursuits, Theo and Zareen grew inseparable, not merely as rulers but as warriors fighting side by side for survival and sovereignty. Yet victories came at costs measured not just in casualties but in emotional tolls exacted daily. Losses weighed heavily, etching lines of fatigue around eyes once bright with hope. Doubts crept in during quiet moments, whispering temptations of surrender. But always, they pushed forward, driven by promises made and dreams envisioned. As weeks morphed into months, momentum shifted gradually. Rebels faltered, stretched thin by prolonged engagements and dwindling resources. Key strongholds fell one by one, reclaimed territories restoring stability incrementally. Celebrations erupted spontaneously, spontaneous parades honoring heroes emerging victorious against odds stacked impossibly high. Throughout it all, Theo remained steadfast beside Zareen, proving doubters wrong with every triumph achieved collaboratively. Together, they demonstrated power residing not solely in titles bestowed but in unity cultivated through adversity endured collectively. And though battles continued raging, hope kindled anew, illuminating paths previously obscured by darkness. For every challenge overcome, faith strengthened, affirming belief in possibilities awaiting realization, if only perseverance prevailed relentlessly. In the wake of hard-won victories, the Luminal Empire began to heal, its wounds slowly knitting together under the careful guidance of Queen Zareen and her unexpected consort, Captain Theo Reynolds. Streets once barren filled again with bustling life, markets reopening their stalls, children laughing freely once more. Yet beneath the surface restoration, deeper transformations stirred, reshaping societal norms and expectations. The alliance between humans and Luminals evolved from necessity-driven arrangement into genuine partnership, fostering unprecedented levels of cooperation. Trade routes expanded, bringing exotic goods from distant galaxies to eager consumers. Cultural exchanges flourished, introducing new art forms, culinary delights, and philosophical perspectives enriching both civilizations. Schools incorporated lessons highlighting shared histories, emphasizing commonalities over differences. Within the palace, reforms swept through antiquated systems, modernizing governance structures to reflect contemporary realities. Zareen championed policies promoting inclusivity, ensuring diverse voices contributed to decision-making processes. Committees formed comprising representatives from various species inhabiting the empire, fostering dialogue and collaboration previously unimaginable. For Theo, adapting to royal duties proved challenging yet rewarding. Initially overwhelmed by protocol and etiquette, he embraced learning curves enthusiastically, determined to excel. Diplomatic missions carried him across star systems, representing luminal interests alongside Earth's burgeoning influence. His reputation grew, respected not just as warrior but as statesman bridging worlds apart. Yet personal growth paralleled professional achievements. Time spent navigating crises together deepened connections between him and Zareen, evolving from tentative partnership into profound companionship. Quiet evenings shared under velvet skies replaced formal receptions, conversations delving into dreams deferred and aspirations nurtured jointly. One such evening, perched atop a balcony overlooking reconstructed cityscape, Theo broached topic long avoided. "Zareen," he began hesitantly, "there's something I've wanted to ask." Turning to face him, she smiled encouragingly. "Ask away, Theo. After everything we've faced, secrets hold little place between us." Taking a deep breath, he continued, "Do you think, maybe someday, we could consider starting a family? Not immediately, of course, but eventually." Her eyes widened momentarily, surprise giving way to contemplation. A family, blending our bloodlines, creating something entirely new. She paused, considering implications vast and complex. "It's ambitious, Theo. Perhaps even risky politically. But, he prompted gently, heart pounding in anticipation. "But worth exploring," she finished softly, reaching out to clasp his hand. "Together, we've accomplished impossible feats already. Why stop now?" Relief washed over him, accompanied by exhilaration sparking possibilities infinite and unknown. They discussed practicalities, genetic compatibility tests, medical considerations unique to interspecies reproduction, social ramifications requiring careful navigation. Challenges loomed large yet surmountable given mutual commitment. Elsewhere, ripple effects of their evolving relationship impacted broader societal landscapes. Debates ignited regarding integration versus segregation, sparking movements advocating equality irrespective of origin. Younger generations embraced ideals championed by royal couple, envisioning futures inclusive and interconnected. Resistance persisted, naturally. Conservative factions clung tenaciously to outdated ideologies, viewing changes wrought as threats undermining cherished traditions. Clashes occasionally erupted, protests escalating into skirmishes quelled swiftly by authorities enforcing newly established laws prioritizing harmony over hierarchy. Through turbulence, Theo and Zareen stood resolute, exemplifying leadership defined not by domination but by dialogue. Public forums facilitated open discussions, inviting dissenting opinions expressed respectfully rather than violently. Gradually, attitudes shifted, acceptance replacing animosity, understanding supplanting ignorance. Meanwhile, external relations improved markedly. Former adversaries extended olive branches, seeking alliances beneficial mutually. Treaties signed cemented partnerships promising prosperity extending beyond borders drawn arbitrarily by distant ancestors. Spaceports buzzed with activity, vessels arriving bearing emissaries eager to engage constructively. Back home, celebrations commemorated milestones achieved collectively. Festivals featured performances showcasing talents transcending species-specific limitations, culinary feasts blending flavors exotic yet complementary. Art exhibits displayed masterpieces collaborative, reflecting visions synthesized uniquely beautiful. Yet amid jubilation, shadows lingered persistently. Threats unseen coalesced quietly, gathering strength patiently awaiting opportune moments to strike. Intelligence reports hinted at conspiracies brewing clandestinely, orchestrated by remnants refusing reconciliation. Awareness heightened, vigilance maintained meticulously. Security protocols tightened, surveillance enhanced utilizing technology's cutting edge. Networks expanded, recruiting informants willing to risk exposure reporting suspicious activities observed discreetly. For Theo and Zareen, balancing celebration with caution became second nature. Joy tempered by awareness, optimism grounded in realism. Hand in hand, they navigated complexities inherent uniting disparate entities, forging futures brighter envisioned cooperatively than individually imaginable. And so, amidst splendor and struggle, legacy unfolded dynamically, shaped continuously by choices courageous and compromises considered carefully. Paths chosen diverged frequently, branching unpredictably yet converging ultimately toward destinies intertwined inevitably. Whatever lay ahead, they faced fortified by bonds unbreakable, strengthened by adversities overcome collaboratively, committed enduringly to crafting legacies lasting eternally.